me, sarah@bioaccelerator.com, or you can message me on Instagram @sarahbrando, and I'm happy to research it. It's really fun. I get to play researcher every month and put together a lot of information that I think can really, really help people on their wellness journey. So I'll just wait, just one more minute to get started. But if anyone has any questions that they know they're going to want answered today, feel free. You can either pop it in the chat, or you can select to message me directly and nobody else will see your question. Okay, someone messaged private. I use Root Wellness in I need to look up Root Wellness. I don't know that one yet. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen in just a minute. When my screen is shared, I can't see the chat. So I will get to the chat at the end and go through any questions, but I won't be able to see it while I am live, but I will stay and make sure that everyone's questions are answered at the end. So, okay, it's 7:05. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so thank you everyone for joining this month's Wellness Wednesday webinar. It is all about supplement science, understanding the role supplements play in the body and how to choose the best ones for you. This is a vast and extensive topic. I cannot do it all in one webinar. There's so much more I wanted to talk about, but I'll have to save it for a part 2 next time. But this is a really good general overview that should empower everybody to get started and know how to choose a good brand. So first, this is a snapshot of the dietary supplements market in the US. So this is a massive, massive industry, $152 billion. As with any massive industries, we know that sometimes profit goes above the best thing for the consumers. And so that's why the supplement market can sometimes involve a lot of products that people spend a lot of money on that are ineffective, or worse, that are actually damaging to your health. So these are the most popular ones that people buy. Multivitamins, which I'm not a fan of most of these, to be honest, because of the way they interact in the body, but some of them I am. So multivitamins, a lot of the times they are in synthetic form. They're really hard to absorb and assimilate by the body. And they have a lot of, if you look at what that guy's holding in the photo, they have a lot of binders, fillers, things that kind of take up space, or they make it stick together. But some of these things are actually quite inflammatory in the body. The question that I get all the time as a nutritionist is, do we need supplements? Because a lot of people say, well, I shouldn't have to take anything. I want to get it all from food. And in theory, you should be able to do that. Yes, but the reality of the modern world we live in is truly that it is much harder than ever before to get the nutrients from our food. Our food is not as good as it was generations ago. The reasons why: soil depletion, transport, so the food has to travel, loses nutrients on the way, growing methods, which I'll talk about, poor gut health, which I will also talk about, that impedes absorption for a lot of people, and high stress levels. If you live a high stress lifestyle, that's kind of related to gut health, because stress affects the gut. You are more likely, unfortunately, to not be able to fully absorb nutrients from your food. This article came out in 2011 from Scientific American, asking the question and answering it: have fruit and vegetables become less nutritious? So the answer was yes, significantly. The main culprit was soil depletion. So farmers aren't doing the methods that they would have done in the past in smaller scale farms. They aren't rotating properly. Nutrients from the soil, due to the way the crops are harvested, and also the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, they are creating soils that don't have the right bacteria and the right nutrients. It's not able to create really, really healthy plants. So this study came from University of California, and it showed that vegetables lose between 15 to 55% of vitamin C, as one example, within a week. Most produce is losing 30% of nutrients within 3 days. And some like spinach. Spinach is especially fragile. It can lose 90% in the first 24 hours. So this is why I actually tell people you don't have to fear frozen, especially for things that are out of season. So if you can get frozen organic berries, if you can get some frozen organic greens, these are not always poor choices for your meals. They can be great choices because they're often flash frozen right when they were picked. Just choose a good company doing organics. This is the sad reality of our food system today. You would have to eat 8 oranges to get the same vitamin A as your grandparents. Calcium levels have dropped about 27% between 1975 to 1997. Iron's dropped about 37%, vitamin A about 21, and vitamin C about 30. So that's a pretty sharp decline since 1975 and a very sharp decline since our grandparents and great-grandparents, and that is creating nutrient deficiencies in individuals. We have to eat more calories to get the same amount of nutrients. These are the statistics. So when people ask, do I need to supplement? I should be able to get it all from food. Statistically, they're probably not getting it all from food. 9 out of 10 Americans aren't getting enough potassium. Even if you eat 1 banana a day, that's 10% of your potassium. So you have to have a varied plant-based diet. You have to have different beans and legumes and greens and pulses, and you have to have a lot of different foods to make sure that you're getting your potassium needs met. And 8 out of 10 are deficient in vitamin E. Synthetic vitamin E, which a lot of people buy at health food stores, grocery stores, things like that, it is extremely difficult to absorb the synthetic form of vitamin E. That's one that should definitely come from food or from food-based supplements, which I'll also talk about. The rise of monoculture. See this crop, this is a soy farm. So all these crops are soybeans. This is very good for industry because it's super efficient. You plant miles of the same thing, you harvest it all at the same time, you spray it with all the same stuff. But in nature, we would have rotating crops and we would have different things. It's called biodynamic farming nowadays, but it used to just be called farming, where you would work with or permaculture. You work with the land and you have different things that have different seasons and crops that work together. You have some natural pest resistant things. Like, for example, you can plant some basil or some onions near to some crops to deter certain pests. All that stuff is gone. And instead it's been replaced with an abundant use of chemicals. On top of that, degrading our food quality, some supplements, even when natural, they are dangerously contaminated. And here on the side, this other article from Food Safety talks about how they had microbial contaminations. So, and these are in natural ones. So it's really important to have a good company that you trust. So things like coriander, echinacea, even garlic, different dried berries. These things can happen in dried products if they aren't properly dried, if the dehydration method isn't good, if they're exposed to a lot of moisture, if they're exposed to a lot of bacteria. So that's something else to look out for as well. Heavy metals are commonly prevalent in supplements, especially protein powders. Protein powders are one of the top sources of heavy metals. So examples of heavy metals are lead, cadmium, arsenic. So arsenic you have to worry about in rice proteins. So this is where a lot of plant-based proteins, which seem like they would be a better option, the plant-based proteins, if they're really, really high in rice as one of the main ingredients, and it's not from a company that tests for arsenic, you could be taking in too many heavy metals. And then mercury as well. Mercury is found in fish. Another place you have to worry about mercury in the supplement world is in certain IVs or injections. So a common one is B12 shots. A lot of people on plant-based diets get B12 shots, vitamin B12, to make sure that they get enough because it can be lacking in a vegan diet. It's actually about 50%, I think, of the population that's low B12. But if it's in sometimes these injections, they sometimes use aluminum as a preservative. And that is not something you want to be injecting. It's linked to Alzheimer's, dementia, neurodegenerative diseases, things like that. So always be very, very careful if you go somewhere for IVs or for injections to ask them for the full ingredient list, and don't assume because it's a naturopathic doctor. I've called a lot of naturopathic doctors for clients in the past to ask them what type of B12 they're using and what the preservatives are. So really be a diligent consumer and make sure that there's no aluminum, no heavy metals as preservatives. So the two types vitamins that commonly are used are synthetic or natural. So synthetic is isolated. So for example, vitamin D, vitamin C, it's not from nature anymore. It's lab created, and you can buy those at pharmacy stores. They're the most common and they're the cheapest. You can, according to science, we're pretty sure that for most people, you easily absorb vitamins in their natural form. The reason why are the cofactors, the enzymes, the fiber. Sometimes certain things bind to the fibers. So actually, when you consume the entire whole food, your absorption is typically improved. The exception to this is, and I'm going to talk about solutions, individuals with really poor gut health. We're kind of in an epidemic now of individuals who might have thrived for a bit on a plant-based diet or trying to eat a lot more vegetables, a lot more fiber. And after a while, they aren't healthy anymore. They peter off. Their health isn't so great. And a huge reason why is because they never fix their gut. If you don't have really good biodiversity in your gut bacteria, it is so hard to break down and extract nutrients from these plant-based foods, from these heavy fiber-based foods, which is why some people thrive for decades and some people can only do it for a few years. It comes down to gut bacteria. So heavy metals in supplements are found in this one 2018 study. 40% out of 134 brands they tested had elevated heavy metals. This is a serious problem because of the neurological implications of this. 75% of 134 brands contained measurable lead concentrations, and whey protein, 1 out of 10 also contain lead. And this is higher in brands that source within the USA. Unfortunately, you really want to see like made in the USA and think that that's a good thing, but it can be the best thing if the company posts online their certificate of analysis, and I'll let you know what that is. Plant-based protein powders also, just because it's vegan doesn't mean it's good for you. A lot of these processed burgers, not good for you. Fake plasticky cheeses, not good for you. And many protein powders that are full of heavy metals, unfortunately, not good for you. I hate it. Nothing more than when people spend a lot of money and they try to do something good for their body and they end up doing something detrimental. So hopefully today this is informative to help you choose. That said, not all metals are harmful. So it's going to be impossible for you to get whole food vitamins that have zero traces of metals because they're naturally in the soil. The difference is within a certain limit that is harmful and naturally occurring versus added in through toxic farming practices, where they're using these things as kind of ways to make farming a little bit easier and more efficient. We do need some metals. So iron, zinc, selenium, these are all quote unquote metals that are naturally occurring that our body needs. So it's not like it's all bad. It's really good to understand nuance and context, but heavy metals that are not naturally occurring and that are added in as a byproduct of modern agriculture can be very harmful to the body. So this list here, I'm not going to read it out loud, but 90% or more of vitamins contain these potentially harmful ingredients, at least one of them. And a lot of these things can create inflammatory responses in the body, or they could come from animals that weren't always very healthy. This is one of the reasons I caution away from collagen supplements. I could do a whole webinar on collagen supplements and how it's better to just build your own, which I'll mention. But when you're taking any sort of animal product, if you don't know for sure that the animal was disease-free and raised in a certain way and fed a proper diet, even if something's like free range, for example, they could still be fed a huge diet of GMO corn, wheat, and soy, which isn't natural. So we have to become very, very, very savvy consumers these days in order to really protect our health. The most dangerous supplements that you have to worry about are sexual enhancement drugs for men typically, and weight loss drugs. These are the ones most likely to have synthetic or prescription drugs that are not on the label. If you've ever used any of these and you want to check it out, the FDA has a health fraud product database where you can put in the name and you can see if it's been recalled, if anybody unfortunately had died from it, which that seems to be sometimes the only reason these things get recalled and attention is paid. It's a really tricky one because I'm not a fan of more government oversight in industries like this, because sometimes it just creates a bigger barrier of entry for small businesses, organic companies, things like that. So it's not perfect. There's no perfect way, but the more you become a savvy consumer, the less you have to worry about this stuff. And the reason why people are going for sexual enhancement drugs, weight loss drugs, they want something to solve their problem really, really, really quick. And in many cases, radically changing your diet and lifestyle can produce actually quite quick results. I've seen amazing things. I've seen type 2 diabetes turn around in a few weeks and things like that. But it's with work. It's never with just a pill. There is no one supplement or no one pill that can help you lose weight in a way that is healthy, that can give you the results you want. Sexual dysfunction is largely a blood flow issue. It's actually one of the first indicators of potential heart disease. So that is a lifestyle intervention. It's definitely not a pill. And so this is what we're going to talk about today. But when you're choosing a company for your supplements, you want to see a COA. So if you're trying out a new brand, send them an email and say, hey, do you have a certificate of analysis for your products? These are certain things that I like to look for on a COA. So a lot of protein powder companies and green powder companies should have this. Maybe not for all of these, but at least ingredient authenticity. So if they didn't grow it themselves, is it for sure what they say it is? Heavy metal testing, pesticide or glyphosate, the worst herbicide of all, and of course these harmful bacteria. And shelf life testing is important too, because you want to make sure that the shelf life is accurate. So companies should be doing that too. If they tell you, it's good for 6 months or 2 years, that should be in like a room temperature environment, and it should be safe and not grow bacteria, mold, yeast, fungus, any of that stuff. I also love soil testing. Not everybody does this, but they'll test for metals, which is complex, because as I mentioned, it's impossible to grow organic food with zero presence of metals. But we want to differentiate between naturally occurring and a high byproduct of manufacturing. So this is a list that was published by Dr. Gonzalez on IG, and this was done by independent third-party testing. These were some of the worst protein powders on the left as far as lack of transparency, so they wouldn't share their data, and quality was really, really low, and heavy metals. So on the right are some of the best protein powders based on transparency, quality, heavy metals. They were willing to share their information. These are a list of companies, and maybe some of you use these, maybe some of you don't. These are companies who are not willing to share their information. So we don't know if they're good or they're bad. We just know that they won't share it. So one of them, Equilibrium Nutrition, did say that they will share it in the future, but they just don't have that in order yet. But the other one said, no, thank you. These are two companies that I recommend with excellent transparency. So Purium is my go-to for all things superfoods and quote unquote supplements. So if you have worked with me, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I recommend this company because they do the soil testing and they have a certificate of analysis for every single product. They are amazing. The other one I really like is Four Sigmatic. They don't raw dehydrate their supplements, so it's not for that, but it's more if you want like a mushroom latte, or you want to have an experience that is different than your everyday coffee, or for the people I work with who will not quit coffee, no matter how much I beg them, they have a really good mushroom coffee. So if anybody wants a discount code for Purium, I do have one for $50 off. I do not have one for Four Sigmatic, but I love to share the companies that I know are doing this. So for example, this is Purium's COA for all of these products. You can see them online. Every single one is on there, and you know exactly what's in it and what the metals and levels are. Also with food-based supplements, you don't have to worry about this stuff. So for example, if you take vitamin K, that's going to affect your blood thinners. If you take ginkgo biloba, fish oil, turmeric, that can increase blood thinning. So if you're on any medications, it's a really good idea before you take anything, even if it's herbal and natural, to check with any potential interactions online. I would say check with your doctor, but even sometimes they don't know if they're not trained in herbology and things like that, if they don't have a lot of supplement knowledge. So really, really good to look this stuff up. And essential oils, if you're ingesting them as well, they can be, I think people think, oh, it's an essential oil, you don't have to worry, but ingesting essential oils can have serious interactions because they are so potent. Any oils with eugenol, for example, that will affect blood thinners and stuff too. So when in doubt, do some research and make sure you aren't creating any pairings that are harmful to you. Other things that I warn people about, when you're getting sick, people take zinc. They take an isolated form of zinc, not the whole food form. And that can actually affect your body's ability to absorb copper, which then can affect your iron. People take some green powders. There's some brands where they put matcha green tea in with all the greens. Well, that caffeine is going to inhibit the absorption of the iron, the vitamin C in there. You won't absorb them as much. So it's a really silly pairing. Vitamin C, can break down B12. So you don't want to take them together, but this happens with the synthetic form of ascorbic acid. This doesn't happen with the food-based stuff. So one way to get more nutrients out of your actual food to try and correct some of these deficiencies. Some of them are less oxygen exposure, less light exposure, and consume them as fresh as you can. So by less oxygen, if you're cutting up some fruit to eat, don't let it sit out. When I'm taking my green juice, I shake it up fresh in my shaker bottle and I've consumed it within 15 minutes because it's starting to be exposed to oxygen and light, which will break down some of those amazing enzymes. And so any fresh fruit you can get, any fresh food from farmers markets, that is going to give you more bang for your buck, better quality of food, more nutrients in it. Use airtight jars to store things, try and store them in a dark place, or, put them in the fridge, close the door. And anything local, raw solar dehydrated. My green juices are raw solar dehydrated. So the nutrients are there, very similar to fresh, and you don't have to worry about poor dehydration methods like molds and things like that. They can really, really affect the quality bacteria growing. You want raw dehydrated and you want to drink it within 15 minutes. The same way if you make green juice, drink it within 15 minutes. If you make a smoothie, drink it within 15, maybe 20 minutes, a wheatgrass shot. All of these things start to break down because they're in their natural form. As soon as you add water or juice them, or you change the chemical composition, you expose them to more air and they can start to oxidize. Also, another tip to get more nutrients is to try heirloom varieties. So these are some heirloom foods. So those are heirloom carrots. They come in different colors. They're kind of wonky. Heirloom tomatoes and different types of heirloom potatoes. These have more nutrients than the conventional varieties that you typically see at the grocery store. So another reason to shop at health food stores, organic markets, farmers markets, you're more likely to find some of these things. And they're fun to cook with, they're different colors, it's a cool experience, and they typically have more nutrients. Here's some ways to pair your food. So for more iron, if you're making lentils, add some vitamin C. So red peppers have the most vitamin C. Squeeze some lemon on top. Create your collagen. I use super amino 23 plus vitamin C. I create my own collagen in the body. I do not supplement it from an animal that was likely diseased and is sometimes an inflammatory and minimally effective product compared to actually making your own. If you want to boost antioxidants in your food, you want to put a fat with your vegetables. So some avocado with your sweet potato, or a little drizzle of olive oil in your tomato sauce. That's going to boost lycopene and beta carotene. And then to lower inflammation, you're going to take a pinch of black pepper in your turmeric latte. It'll increase the active ingredient curcumin by 2,000%. Just a little pinch of black pepper. So these are some really cool hacks to help you get more out of your food so that you are not one of those nutrient deficient statistics that I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar. These little tiny things, which are delicious anyways, can really, really help you. Next is gut health. This is the single most important factor in someone's recovery. So when I work with people, when I talk to people, the one thing we're always addressing is gut health, because that's where your immune system is. That's where your serotonin is, your happy hormone. And that is your ability to literally break down and absorb things from food. So most people today are walking around with in America, I believe the average American has about 450 to 500 different bacterial strains in their gut. The average person in the blue zone, so the longest lived populations, the most centenarians, and people who have really, really good health, they're sitting at 2,000 to 2,500 strains. When I see people with chronic illness, people with Lyme disease, different conditions like that, I won't list them all, but Crohn's colitis, they typically are sitting around 100 to 200, maybe 150 average different bacterial strains. So that is a massive, massive, massive difference. And this is why a lot of people are arguing right now over this diet's the best and that diet's the best and I should be carnivore and I should be plant-based. Well, if you don't fix your gut bacteria, if you're one of those people with 150 strains instead of 2,000 plus strains, of course you're going to fail on plants. You're not going to thrive at all. That's not going to be the right diet for you unless you want to fix your gut. If you're somebody with a lot of different strains in your gut and you digest a lot of foods and you have lots of variety in your diet, a carnivore diet will make you feel terrible. So it depends on your starting point and also where you're going and how much we can build up the resiliency in your gut. And I will tell you how to do that. But this is from my gut health webinar. So if you look at the slide on the left, or the thing on the left, that box, the unhealthy gut box. If you have a lot of those, then probably you don't have the best time absorbing nutrients from food. Probably a very, very high fiber diet is not going to work so well for you until we fix the problem. So if you're more on the right side, the healthy gut side, then you're probably going to thrive on a high plant-based diet. So people say it comes down to, I've heard all kinds of things. They used to say blood type and that got debunked. They used to say your genetics and that's been debunked. But it's kind of true because your genetics, and blood type's also usually genetic, is often, they say diets run in families more than diseases do. So you're going to eat what your parents ate, what their parents ate, or in many cases, even worse, which is creating worse gut health over time. If you were a C-section baby, if you took a lot of antibiotics as a kid, if your mom took a lot of antibiotics before she was pregnant or when she was pregnant, even worse, you might not have the best gut health. So there are things that you can do to shift it. I can't cover them all in this webinar, but I'm going to cover a few. And then I'm going to do a gut health part 2 in the next few months to really dive deeper into this. But one thing you can do is literally make sure you're hydrated. Your digestive system needs water for the food to just be pushed through, and it will pull any available fluids if you are dehydrated. So if you don't have enough fluid available for this process, you become constipated, super bloated, your digestion is slow, you feel like crap, you're exhausted. So one of the cheapest, easiest ways to support your body for free is just to drink more water during the day to really make sure you're hydrated. The next most important thing that people should try their best to do, it's very hard in this world, is avoid glyphosate. This is an extremely damaging, genetically modified pesticide. It's used for GMO farming and it's put right in the seed. So there's no avoiding it. You can't wash it off. And this herbicide is most commonly used on things like corn, soy, sugar beets, canola, alfalfa. If I see canola oil as an ingredient on something, I run. And also, unfortunately, for my plant-based, plant-forward dieters, they spray glyphosate like crazy on wheat, hence a lot of gluten intolerance, oats, barley, lentils, chickpeas, sugarcane, sunflower seeds. The good news is if you buy organic, they're not using glyphosate. But if you're not buying organic and it's not from a small farm, we don't know, but if it's from a large scale farm, it's likely that there's glyphosate. Glyphosate basically kills all the plants except the ones that have been genetically engineered to not die. They used to say that, okay, well, glyphosate, humans don't have cell walls the same way plants do. We have cell membranes, but they have the membrane and they have the cell wall. We don't have that. So, and then we don't create EPSP synthase. I don't need to get into the details of it, but basically because we're not the same as plants, it doesn't affect us. This study completely ignored the human microbiome, the gut. And by doing that, they ignored the fact that over half of our gut bacteria are seriously negatively affected by glyphosate, which is why we're seeing all these cancer suits and things like that. Your immune system is in your gut. So if your gut is damaged, your immune system is damaged and you will not be able to heal as effectively. In many cases, people can't heal for a long time, even for life, because they never heal their gut. So this is my number one supplement that I recommend for everybody because it's the only one with a clinical study that shows it actually removes 74% of glyphosate in 6 weeks. It repairs the gut lining. So regrows intestinal villi, those like tiny little hairs on your small intestine to help you absorb and assimilate food. And it reduces inflammation. So C-reactive protein, CRP, is a biomarker on a blood test that can tell you what your inflammation is. It's non-specific. If someone has elevated CRP, I don't know if they have a terrible diet, if they're an insomniac. It can be if they're so stressed. It can be a number of different things. I don't know which one. By looking at it, it's non-specific, but this product actually was able to lower CRP from any cause by about 75% because so much of it stems from the gut. So for me, this is definitely a must. I also live in Mexico, and sometimes I have tacos, and I'm pretty sure all the corn is GMO at this point that isn't organic. I've had to do some research. I found places that have blue corn, blue heirloom corn. So if you're someone that likes tacos and you want to avoid the glyphosate, that's a good option. And also if you like soy, if you like tofu products, things like that, make sure you are buying organic. And yeah, this is like my insurance policy against all of the kind of toxic pesticides out there. The next one I get asked about a lot are probiotics. People spend a lot of money taking probiotics and they ask if they're worth it. More or less, my answer is no. They can be worth it for short amounts of time, like a couple months, to introduce a new strain to your body, but they're not really moving the needle. So remember how I said the healthiest people have like 2,000 varieties of gut bacteria or more. Most probiotic supplements have about 4. So sure, we want 4 more. That's great. Maybe even 10 more, whatever they have on the label. That's great. We'll add a few more. If you're someone who's really low diversity, a chronic disease patient with 150, 200 strains, that's a pretty big difference. That's a few percent there. But for the average person, they're not going to do much. And often they do not have the right type of probiotics of good bacteria to survive the extreme acidity of the digestive process of your stomach. They usually don't make it enough to repopulate. So I recommend prebiotics, which are foods. Also, the Biomedic has prebiotics in it as well. But things like, I have a whole slide on this as well that I can share in my gut health webinar where I list all the prebiotics, but things like bananas, artichokes, onions, garlic, jicama, those are some of my favorite prebiotics. That is gut food. My favorite probiotics are homemade. So simple to do this yourself. You really just need a jar, some veggies and some sea salts, a really good jar, home canning, seal it up, forget about it. And adding these in, starting small if you have poor gut health, a teaspoon before a meal, work your way up to half a cup before a meal. And the more different ones you have, the better. So homemade is the key though, because the ones in the grocery store, sometimes they're pasteurized, they're not even raw, which kills bacteria. And in this case, we want good bacteria. Sometimes they're using a starter culture. That's why they're so soft. When I make sauerkraut, it's crunchy and hard for months. Unfortunately, to make it really soften up, they add a starter culture of probiotics, but you're then once again, like taking a probiotic, you're getting like 4 or 5 strains. So really making your own and doing this at home, it doesn't take a lot of time. It's a great activity with friends, with family, with kids, and it's extremely, extremely rewarding. This is an added bonus. This is a huge part of my gut health routine. And for anybody trying to eat more plants or boost their immunity or get healthier, the combination of things I'm recommending today will really help take you to that next level and having more bacterial diversity. So you are a stronger warrior in this crazy world is one of the most important things that we could be doing. The next supplement I want to talk about, if you watched my sleep webinar, I mentioned this one, so I'm not going to dive too deep, but it's melatonin. So many people take melatonin to fall asleep. And this is one that I don't like to recommend to people, but it is naturally a hormone. So people think, oh, well, melatonin's natural, it's a hormone, not realizing that anytime you supplement a hormone, there's going to be an effect. And it does regulate your circadian rhythms. The other thing that regulates your circadian rhythm is your gut bacteria. So your circadian rhythm and your gut bacteria are linked. So the more you eat on a normal schedule, the more you get nutrition in your body. I go for my morning green juice, my power shake, like 30 minutes after waking, maybe an hour after waking. And my body, this is how I fixed hormonal issues when I used to have them in the past, was teaching my body it can trust me and that I'm going to get up every morning and by a certain time, I'm going to give it nutrition. And when your body builds that trust, your hormones start to balance, your sleep gets better, you build a good rhythm with your gut bacteria and then your circadian rhythm as well. When you start doing synthetics like melatonin, a synthetic isolated hormone that your body naturally produces, you end up with things like this. Between 2012 and 2021, Poison Control Center reports went from 8,337 to over 52,000. That is a huge jump. And so many more people are taking this because and I understand why, in our stressed out world, it can be really, really hard to sleep. It can be hard to calm down. If you don't have good gut health, it can be hard to calm down. So things you can do before bed to relax you. If you want my sleep webinar, send me a message and I'll send you the link to watch it and you can get some more information on this there. But most important thing that I can communicate to you today about melatonin is if you have children, please don't give it to them. Hospitalization of children from melatonin overdoses peaked the last 2 years. Probably no surprise. This was a stressful time for kids. But these melatonin supplements can impact their hormonal development. We don't know how much because nobody is studying this. Sometimes research is slow, so we have to use common sense ahead of time and look at the patterns here. If this can damage adults, we do not want to be giving this to children. These are things that can happen to adults. And the bottom one is the one that I worry about the most. I see people who have dependencies, and mostly this is a psychological dependency. Can be a little bit physiological, but psychological too, where people think they need it. And I've helped people wean off of melatonin in a week, actually, and they thought that they would never get off and they'd be taking it for 10 years, but they had this belief that they needed it. So you also don't want to put yourself in a trap where you think that you need synthetic drugs to help you fall asleep. My go-to as a replacement that is evidence-based is Tart cherry juice concentrate. So this one has a very positive effect on sleep. I also utilize this tool for individuals who have anxiety disorders. They take a tablespoon of it and it's very, very calming. So it can help as well if you're very, very anxious, but it works very, very well to help individuals fall asleep because it has high amounts of melatonin, a natural form of melatonin, which boosts your body's own stores, which means the more you take this over time, not the more you're building a dependency, but the more actually you are building up a melatonin store. So when you're a child, you have so much melatonin. You have crazy dreams and you sleep deeply. You don't even wake up by like the tooth fairy. You sleep right through everything. And as we age, we have less and less melatonin. So we don't sleep as deep, which means we don't heal and rest as well. And also, we don't dream as much for many people. So this is an awesome, awesome tool that is evidence-based. Tart cherry juice concentrate to enhance your sleep quality and boost your natural melatonin levels. So that if you go traveling around and you don't have it, you aren't panicking, like, I don't have my melatonin. You're calm because you replenished your own stores of it. And these are some other sleep teas as well that can replace potentially harmful supplements before bed. So these teas are nice, or essential oils, just in a diffuser, breathe them in. These are gentle ways of doing it, and they're all evidence-based as well. Because of all of the issues with contamination in the supplement realm and improper dosing, food-based supplements have become really popular. So this is something that I'm very happy about. Food-based supplements can be less potent. They don't have as many milligrams of certain things, but in many, many cases, having too high, for example, 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, when you really only need a 90 of really, really good quality vitamin C, this can cause adverse effects in people like dizziness, nausea, upset stomach, sweating. There's people react differently, but when we have too many synthetics or that risk of interaction, right? An isolated synthetic zinc instead of a whole food zinc can throw off your zinc copper balance, throw off your iron, we're playing dominoes basically when you start isolating individual things. So food-based supplements cover that. And food-based supplements also provide something very, very important, which is minerals. Because our soils are so sterile, they are missing minerals. And when you have minerals, you have stronger cells. So for example, we talked about how there's some metals that our bodies need that are good for us. So some of these metals like zinc, iron, selenium, when our cell doesn't have those, magnesium, for example, when magnesium is really missing from a cell and mercury goes floating by in the bloodstream, it can look very chemically similar to your cell. Out of desperation, because your cell is starved of magnesium, your cell is starved of selenium, whatever it may be, it's going to pull in these heavy metals like mercury. And that is going to paralyze the cell. It's going to make it weaker. So what you need to do is strengthen your cells so that they have micronutrients, so they are less likely to pull in environmental contaminants and make you sicker. If you are somebody who suffers from chronic disease, I meet a lot of people who they want to like, okay, what pill do I take to detox? What do I do for a detox? How do I kill this, kill that, attack? My approach, and everyone who's ever been on one of my webinars, you know my approach, stop attacking. Start loving yourself, start hyper nourishing your body, stop attacking your body. Many people have never actually stopped and given themselves all the nutrients they need for the day. They've never, stopped to meditate and do breath work and move their bodies and be part of an amazing supportive community, things that help us heal. And so attacking this from a gentle, loving perspective instead of a, what can I take? How do I fix this? Will make all the difference in someone's healing. And those are the people that get better. So when you start to nourish your cells, they become more resilient. And people want to, if they have a lot of heavy metals in the body, they want to do chelation therapy, which is so harsh. You do really harsh IVs and things that act like a magnet and pull these metals out of these weak, damaged cells. If you have heavy metal toxicity in your body, you most likely 99% of the time, your liver and your kidneys are not going to be thriving. And we know that your cells aren't either, or that wouldn't have happened. So what you think you want to do is do a bunch of really harsh therapies to pull these toxins out of your weak cells. That's not my approach. That's not my recommendation. My approach is always forget those cells. Your body's not going to keep them forever. They're goners, wish them love, and, move on to creating new cells. When you're healthy and you're nourished and your mitochondria are supported, when you have your micronutrient needs met, your cells are now powerful. They're powerhouses, and they will start creating new cells, and they will start duplicating, and they will start doing all the things they couldn't do when you were sick because you didn't have the right nutrients in your body and you didn't have the right minerals, which are really, really important because the soil wasn't there. So this is why I'm such a big advocate of food-based supplements. And this is a really good example here. So we've got synthetic vitamin C or a real vitamin C. So the synthetic one is ascorbic acid. That is usually made from GMO corn when it's in this supplement form. I blurred out the name of this brand, but this is a really common brand. You probably know it. So that one says super orange. And you probably look at that and you're like, oh, super, it's orange. Orange is quote unquote natural flavors. There's no orange in there. That's the flavoring. Anytime you see natural flavors on a label and they don't tell you what it is and it's not organic, run. That could be literally anything. One of the common natural flavors is castoreum, which is literally, I swear you can Google this, from a beaver anus. And that is used for like vanilla and raspberry flavors. It's so disgusting. I don't know who discovered that, or I'd love to know how that was discovered. But when I see natural flavors, even like on an almond milk or something, no way am I buying that product unless it's a company that's like, this is what it's made from. It's certified organic. You definitely want to be mindful of that. And also this whole food cocktail here is full of it's a holistic vitamin source. It has vitamin C complex with all the enzymes and the cofactors to heal. The only exception to this, I will say, for ascorbic acid, synthetic vitamin C, is in an IV form, intravenous. When someone has chronic disease, I've seen a lot of people get better with an IV of vitamin C. It's not from GMO corn in that form. That's one of the only isolated nutrients that helps people, and it doesn't replace this vitamin C here. The reason I'm mentioning it is because there's evidence it helps people who are going through chemotherapy, people who have very, very low immune system function. It can boost your immune system because you absorb 99.9% of it when it's in an IV form. But that doesn't replace the whole food. And that's for any of my chronic disease patients who are watching, who are trying to just do that extra little thing to get better. That's the only exception where I recommend that for some people. And it's just to boost your immune system, but it doesn't have the enzymes and cofactors. So I don't recommend that as a replacement to making sure you have enough vitamin C in your actual diet. And finally, this is why I am a huge advocate of whole food nutrition. This is why I'm a huge advocate of food-based supplements and supporting organic, because I know how hard it is for farmers to do the right thing. It is extremely, extremely difficult to do organic farming. They don't get as much funding. If any little contamination happens, their whole crop is done. And these are the farmers that are trying to create a better world. These are the companies that are trying to create a better world where they're not putting profit above everything else. And if we don't support these companies, the ones who are posting their certificate of analysis, the ones who are doing things organically, the ones that are raw dehydrating, we will not have those companies. We will not have those options. We know who, the biggest farmland of the biggest farm owner in the United States is. We know the way the world is going. If we don't make a shift and make sure that our money, our dollars are going to support companies and ourselves in ways that will nourish us. So the more you focus on your micronutrients, I do this, I'm drinking green juice all day long. I'm sure some of the patients watching this from BioAccelerator, they've seen me with a green mouth or something on calls. I drink this stuff all day long. I'm always making sure my body is nourished. I'm making sure that my cells, my mitochondria are supported, that I'm getting my micronutrients in from food-based organic supplements and from a good diet and by the good combinations I talked about, the iron with the vitamin C, so your lentils and red peppers, a little bit of avocado on my sweet potato for more vitamin A absorption, all that good stuff. These things make a difference, and it's a holistic journey. It's never going to be one thing. There's no supplement you can take. There's no individual product, but working on your gut health, supporting your gut health, not being full of toxic pesticides, herbicides, fungicides as much as possible, and supporting your detox pathways with a good lifestyle so that when your cells are armed and ready, you've got good warriors and they can help you get out and heal. So those are all the slides that I have to share today. There's so much more on this topic that I would love to dive into, but I can't do it all on one webinar. So I will answer anybody's questions now. You can direct message them privately to me. Okay, I've got some here. I'm just going to start going through them. Yes, you can watch the replay of this. It's going to be on YouTube. Okay, so I am looking into prenatals with high folic acid. Okay, so this is a really, really important one. What you actually want is folate. Folic acid is the synthetic isolated version on an ingredient list of folate. So for folate, I can definitely recommend, so you want greens. You want a lot of different rich greens. So the power shake that I take, the raw dehydrated greens, and something called green spectrum, which is another 15 different varieties of greens. Amazing, amazing combo for pre-pregnancy, and massive green smoothie. So get your folate. This is the hyper nourishing smoothie. So you're going to take, you can get like a big thing of organic greens at Costco or somewhere like that to make it affordable. So handfuls of big organic greens in the morning. If somebody is a chronic disease patient, if you're watching this and you have a chronic disease, this is going to help you heal this. This is a proven protocol from Goodbye Lupus by Dr. Brooke Goldner. So you take, in this case, if you're trying to heal, you cut this in half if you're not, a pound of fresh raw vegetables. So ideally greens, the more greens, the better. And then a quarter of a pound of fruit. So things like berries, like whatever, pineapple, if you're okay with pineapple, bananas, some people with Lyme disease and stuff, the yeast, the bananas can kind of feed their yeast, so they don't do so well with that. But if you're a healthy person, so you're doing like a 4-to-1 ratio of greens to fruit, a ton of water, you're making a massive, massive smoothie here, and about half a cup of chia or flax seeds. With chia seeds, you want to pre-soak them. I keep a big jar of chia seeds in my fridge at all times, and I scoop them out and I put them into a blender with my other stuff. The reason why, if you put the raw chia seeds in there, you'll get the fiber and you'll get the fat, but you're not going to get a lot of the other nutrients, the iron, the calcium. It's harder for your body to absorb it unless you've soaked it first. So soak the chia seeds, put them in a jar with a lid in your fridge, and then just scoop out half a cup when you're making your giant smoothie. That is the rapid recovery protocol. So that's part of what I put people on that's evidence-based and really, really works and helps people get better. So yeah, a whole pound of greens. There's one called Power Greens at Costco that's super cheap. And that's a really, really good way to get it in. The more variety, the better. That's going to be a lot of folate. So real folic acid, folate. That's an amazing, amazing one before pregnancy. And you're going to get all your greens in, and then fats. Pregnant women need fats so badly. It's super, super important. So this is where the omegas from the chia and the flax are going to come in and offer a lot of support. And then, of course, the fruits, you can have more fruit if you want throughout the day, but that's just a really good ratio because the greens are the most important thing. I even have some people that drink it with cucumber. They don't use any other fruit at all. They have a very ketogenic type smoothie, and they really, really enjoy it. So send me an email after, and I'll make sure that I can send you a little list of things that I recommend, and I can send you that smoothie recipe in case you don't remember. Sarah@bioaccelerator.com. Thank you so much for the people who private messaged me nice things. I really appreciate it. Thank you everyone who takes an interest in this stuff. I'm super, super passionate. I love to share it. Okay, the next one. Do I trust blood tests to tell accurate deficiencies? Not really, no. And the reason why is because a blood test can show you what is going on in your blood. It doesn't tell me what's getting into your cell. And this is a really, really important difference. So for example, someone with iron deficiency starts taking a bunch of synthetic iron, and their blood test shows their iron's a little better. And oftentimes they're still lethargic, they're sluggish, they don't feel very well. There is one test that I do like. It is called Spectra cell. I'm pretty sure it's called Spectra cell, SPECTRA cell. The Spectra cell test actually looks at what is getting into your cells, and they will recommend food items and stuff to help you do that, which is why I recommend whole food nutrition. Sometimes when you do the synthetics, the interactions aren't good. It throws other ones out of balance. It's not good. It can throw your body off. So they will recommend food or food-based supplements to try and fill those gaps. But SpectraCell is the only one that I know of. I'm sure there's others, but that's the one I happen to know of that will actually tell you what's going on a cellular level, not just what is bioaccumulating in your bloodstream, because that doesn't give you the full picture, unfortunately. but it's an okay baseline, you know, if you just want to see where your health is at and things like that. But if you're, you know, going through the process of getting blood work, spend a couple $100 and really know what's going on in your body in a big way is my advice. If you dream a lot, does that mean you're getting into deep sleep? Yeah, it means that you are getting enough REM sleep, which is great. So when we dream, that is a really, really important part of the sleep process. So it helps our brain actually to kind of combine and make sense and process the things that we learn during the day. And it helps like neural processing. And so when people do things to fall asleep that they think helps them, quote unquote, fall asleep and, you know, sleep better, it helps them pass out. Really, really important difference. I talked about this in my sleep webinar. Things that make you pass out are marijuana before bed, watching TV before bed. So a lot of blue light in your eyes. And what's the other one I'm blanking on? So, wine, of course, alcohol. So people drink alcohol and it makes them sleepy and they pass out. But these are blocking that REM sleep, that deep restorative sleep where actually your mind is piecing together everything, your experiential memory. So we want REM sleep. We don't want to block it. So those are not good tools to help you fall asleep. That's why I go food-based with the Tart cherry juice concentrate. I do that instead. I don't use the melatonin. I do things naturally. If you need more support, those teas I mentioned, certain essential oils you can smell, but Epsom salt baths, and another one too that really, really works for a lot of people. There wasn't enough time. I should have put it in here too, but hopefully you guys are still here. Magnesium sprays. So magnesium sprays are great if you think you're low magnesium, if you're constantly stressed, if you have trouble sleeping, or Epsom salt baths where you actually just sit in a bath of Epsom salts, which are full of magnesium. You can't overdose on spray magnesium, because it's kind of like swimming in the ocean, like Epsom salts, right? You can't get too much. Your body's not going to OD you on spraying something like that on. It's a trace mineral, an ocean trace mineral. So just think of it as like going in the sea. If you're someone that wakes up early in the morning with anxiety, magnesium spray and lay down and it'll help calm you down. But as you fix your diet, as you have more, food-based supplements, if you have these big smoothies in the morning, if you take care of your gut health, you'll have more magnesium, and that's way less likely to happen to you. But these are really good short-term interventions that I'm a big fan of. Can I do a home fermenting webinar? I'm 100% going to do that. I didn't know how many people would be interested, but I'm going to do a live class where I'm going to send out the instructions to everybody ahead of time. And so I'll invite all the BioAccelerator patients, and I'll just invite my Instagram, anyone who wants to come. I'm going to give you guys a shopping list ahead of time. I'm going to do that this month in October, but it's not going to be my monthly webinar. But I'm going to tell everyone, so buy these veggies and buy these types of cans and get your really good quality sea salt ready. These are my, a really good type. And we're all going to meet on Zoom and we're going to ferment together. It's going to be super fun. And that is kind of like a little next level nutrition hack to really help people be able to absorb food and really go there. So yeah, so I'm definitely going to do a fermenting webinar, and it'll be, or Zoom meeting, it'll be live and we can all ferment together and it's going to be super fun. So follow I'll post it on Instagram anyway when it's ready. I have to get all the stuff here and figure out what I want to ferment, but it'll be quite a few different things. With fermented foods, the more different ones you take, the better, because you're going to have different bacteria on your red cabbage versus your beets based on where it was grown. If you had your own backyard stuff, that would be amazing. I really love the Purium superfoods because they have their own organic farm and they post their soil quality. So, the nutrients are there and stuff. So that's really, really hard to get by ordering online. If you have your own little backyard garden and you really trust the soil and there's no chance of like a cat peed in it or something, then even you can take your veggies and really just brush them off, and you don't have to thoroughly wash them, and you ferment them that way. And if you have really, really, really good soil, that's more bacteria, and that's probably some good B12 in your fermented foods as well. So this is kind of a tool that I do to help, all this stuff, the biomedic, the gut support, the varieties, the micronutrient fixing, and the fermented foods is how I help people to stay on healthy diets that have a lot of fiber, because the evidence is really clear that we need fiber. But it's also really clear that we live in a world where people are so damaged and their gut health is so poor that they cannot eat cabbage without being bloated and gassy, and I hate vegetables, they're trying to kill me. And it's no one's fault though. It's not an individual's fault. Most of your gut bacteria was made in the first 1,000 days of your life. So there's nothing you can do about that. You didn't choose what was in your mom's breast milk. You didn't choose what she ate. You didn't choose what happened when she was pregnant. And even your mom was carrying you when your grandmother was pregnant with her, right? Because when the grandmother is pregnant with a female, all of her eggs are there. So it's generational. So it carries down and carries down and carries down, which is, it's fascinating, but it shows you how far back some of this stuff goes. A lot of our grandparents were sprayed with DDT. Remember that? DDT is good for me. And kids would run in pesticides. DDT was like the previous glyphosate, and everyone was pretending it wasn't bad and it was good for them. And all of a sudden, oh wait, this causes very serious cancer and neurological disorders. Who knew? Except they knew. So it's really, really up to us to heal. And so, yeah, I'm going to do a fermented thing, and we can all ferment together and we can all be super warriors. All right. Off topic, but a water filter suggestion here in Mexico. I'm going to get back to you on that. Message me on Instagram. I am currently looking into that because here in Mexico, they're really big on water softeners, but I don't want to just soften my water. I want to filter it. I'll still never drink it, but I really, really want to completely change it and make it a lot cleaner. I have one company that I found that's out of Florida. So this would be applicable to anybody, no matter where you live, because you send them a sample of your water and they test it, and then they tell you like what type of filters you need, and then they send it to you. I just don't know how it works with the install if you're not in the United States. So to be determined on the water filter thing. I will get back to you on that. Water is a really, really tough topic because, tap water is full of all kinds of things that are not good for the gut, not good for your health. There's chlorine in there. There's, fluoride in there, which is not good for the brain. So distilling water, distilling water is one way around that, but you want to add the minerals back in. Okay, so last question, and then I'm going to wrap it up, but you guys can reach me at my email, bioaccelerator.com, or on Instagram, where most of you reach me anyway. What do I recommend for gas, bloating, and constipation? Is magnesium safe for constipation? Yes, magnesium is important. If you're really, really constipated, first and foremost, make sure you're drinking a ton of water, and then make sure you're getting enough fiber. It's really, really important for, removing excess estrogens and stuff from the body to make sure that you are super hydrated, that you're getting enough water in. So I do recommend making sure your magnesium levels are good. Magnesium is a bit of a stool softener, actually. So if you take too much, you'll know. And magnesium's great. Just make sure your hydration is just chug water. You're probably not drinking enough, even if you think you are. And make sure you're eating enough fiber. Same thing. So, okay. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming to the wellness webinar this month. Stay tuned for next month and for our home fermenting workshop. That's going to be super fun. And I'll see you guys next month. You know where to find me if you have any more questions. Thanks so much.